I think what I do is art, right? I have a hard time calling it that. To call myself an artist, it seems like giving yourself a nickname. Like, you don't call yourself an artist. Someone else calls you an artist. I know that's not true, but that's kind of how I've always felt about it. Usually I would call my stuff like doodles or cartoons or something like that. So for this episode, I'd like to embody an artist, at least an artist that I guess I've got in my own like imposter syndrome head. Realism, art, which is like a genre of art I've always found to be super boring. They're very serious and they're very pretentious. And what do these serious artists have? Well, they all have a muse. And a muse is the subject or person that they worship in hopes of perfecting their likeness, using them as inspiration for life. And I can think of no better muse than my own dog, Banjo. This is Banjo. Usually when I draw him, it looks a little bit like this. But my hope is maybe I can get something that looks a little bit more realistic. Let's go figure out how to draw realistically instead of like weird creatures and monsters and stuff like that. All right, he doesn't want the bed. We're gonna draw the boy. We'll get broad shapes down, your little peg legs, a little bit of a tube. Okay, it looks bad. We do this.
No.
We don't do this. Thankfully, Aaron came in and took a look at it and gave me some pointers. Sounds like you can't be afraid to be messy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the feeling of the charcoal is like nails on a chalkboard. The grid seemed to help me get the proportions down. Things are looking kind of like Banjo. Every single time when I try to make something even slightly realistic, I get to this point where it gets a little bit uncomfortable, and then I decide to ditch the realism and start drawing some super thick, bold outlines and just make it cartoony and kind of retreat back to my safe haven of like cartoonish, very graphic style. I'm gonna try to resist that urge. Aaron just rescued me again, assured me that I'm on the right track, and gave me a little bit of advice.
And this is looking off maybe because you haven't added the value. Where is the darkest dark and where is the lightest light within a dog that is black?
Day 2. If I'm being honest, I don't like it. This is kind of what we got so far. I think the problem with realism, like the more effort and detail you put into it, it's looking more and more like this thing that you want it to. But then there's this big, sudden dip, very dramatic dip. And that's the uncanny valley, where something is becoming realistic, but also kind of creepy and unsettling. When I think of the uncanny valley, I think of those animatronics that Chuck E. Cheese would have. What I want to do to make him look a little less fucking creepy, just add more values. Don't be afraid to make a mark, even if you're making a mistake. All right, I think I'm starting to get to the point of diminishing returns. And I noticed that at a certain point, I just start to lose details. Yeah, right now I'm just kind of throwing graphite at the paper and seeing if anything sticks. The thing that I want to keep in mind for realism is the illusion of detail is a lot more important than the actual detail. Have like an appreciation for the likeness of the subject, but also like treat it like art and be flexible with it and kind of have fun with it. And I think that might mean getting a little bit looser with it. Thanks to Aaron's advice and a lot of meticulous details, I had a drawing that looked like something from real life. I was even kind of proud of it. All there was left to do now was sign it, spray some fixative to preserve it, and frame it before presenting it to my muse to see what he thought of my drawing. That didn't really go as planned. He's really not that particular most of the time, but maybe seeing something that looked so similar to him was like overwhelming to him. You know, it's kind of like how people hate the sound of their own voice or something. I don't know. But I came this far and wasn't above greasing the wheels in order to get the shot that I had in mind. But that didn't seem to help either. Just because he's my muse doesn't mean that he needs to like the art I make of him. Don't worry, Banjo. I'm only a tourist in realism. Back to the cartoons.